This is the entrance to the Alhambra in Granada. The Alhambra is a lavish Moorish palace filled with tile work and handiwork and fountains and gardens where the sultans lived. This was during the Kingdom of Granada. After Spain, the Spanish had pushed out the Muslims for most of Spain, but Granada continued to be their kingdom for 250 years.
The Alhambra is entered through the Mexuar Palace. The beautiful craftsmanship is immediately evident. Then comes the Comares Palace, the centerpiece of the complex. The incredible artistry of the Alhambra is demonstrated here in the Hall of the Ambassadors. The jigsaw ceiling made up of 8,017 separate pieces of wood suggests the complexity of Allah's infinite universe. Islamic tradition is that this stalactite sculpturing is a reference to the cave where Muhammad received inspiration from the Archangel Gabriel. Islamic belief is that you should not make representations of living things because the creation of living forms is unique to God. So the lavish ornamentation here is mostly geometric patterns and religious calligraphy. Islamic belief literally surrounds you in the palace. This phrase, "Only Allah is victorious," is repeated 9,000 times on these walls. The slender columns make it seem like the structure above is hovering in thin air. The arches grow into honeycombs, shimmering with light. Each of the patios of the Alhambra is a peaceful oasis.
This is the Generalife Gardens. It's part of the Alhambra complex, and I came over here to talk to you about two people, a little crowded in there to be able to have a chance to talk. The two people, first is a celebrity name drop, Christopher Columbus. As you will recall, Chris spent years stalking Ferdinand and Isabella to get authority for his voyage of exploration. The king and queen finally got rid of their final piece of business when they conquered Granada, and they moved into the Alhambra in 1492. A famous year, right? So Chris made his final pitch to the king and queen in the Hall of the Ambassadors in the Alhambra. First they said no, because they didn't think his predictions about the circumference of the world were right, but then they called him back, brought him to stand in front of them in the Hall of the Ambassadors, and they told him, yes, you had authority, you had money, and he got his voyage. So this is pretty cool, right? Now think about the link here. When you're in the Hall of the Ambassadors, your feet could be in the same spots that Columbus's feet were. You could be standing where Columbus was standing on one of the best days of his life. So getting to my second name drop, Ferdinand and Isabella moved in here. Charles V started to build a palace. But then the government and royalty of Spain moved on to Madrid. And it's really crazy, but over the centuries, this place, the Alhambra, fell apart, fell into disrepair. It was dilapidated. Squatters lived here. Sheep and goats were walking around in the courtyards. It's hard to imagine. During the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon's troops were here, did not do the place any favors. And on their way out, they blew up 8 towers to prevent it from being used for opposing military people. So it's kind of fallen apart. But then there's this second name drop, Washington Irving, an American author of the 19th century. You know, from American literature class in high school, he wrote Rip Van Winkle and Sleepy Hollow. So he's wandering around Europe in the 1820s. He makes friends with a Russian diplomat in Madrid, and they come down here. He visits this place and gets permission to, get this, move in. So he moves in. Here's one of his rooms with a plaque in the Alhambra. He allegedly decorates in New England style, which I think is crazy considering the other decor that's there. And while he was here, in 3 months, he wrote a book called Tales of the Alhambra. Now, Washington Irving is not a celebrity today, but he was then. And because he wrote this book, he pulled the Alhambra back into the limelight and started its rehabilitation and brought more attention to it, which gradually led to it being such a place to visit today. So, you know, we always like to say George Washington slept here, or you read that or see that. Well, George Washington didn't sleep here, but Washington Irving slept here. After the Spanish conquest of Granada, the Spanish monarchy took over the Alhambra. Behind me is the palace of Charles V, and he wanted to build it, I guess, on purpose in the old Moorish palace complex. And the one thing you can say about this place is, this palace, is that it's bigger than the Moorish palaces. A case of perhaps palace envy?
This is the beautiful Granada Cathedral. This cathedral is interesting for the medieval political statement it made. While other locations were available, the cathedral was deliberately built on top of the mosque. And the facade is a triumphal arch. Political references to the defeat of the Muslims.
This is the royal tomb where Ferdinand and Isabella are buried. I can't take you inside because they don't allow cameras, videos. Now, you know about Ferdinand and Isabella. You know, Christopher Columbus, religious intolerance, the Spanish Inquisition. So let me talk about something else, because in addition to Ferdinand and Isabella, Juana the Mad and Philip the Handsome are also buried in there. Juana the Mad was Isabella and Ferdinand's daughter, and Philip was her husband. So here's Juana. First, let's look at her name, Juana the Mad, right? Now, does that mean mad as in angry or mad as in crazy? Let's take a vote. Let me see what you think. How many of you think that Juana the Mad meant she was angry? Okay, and how many of you vote for, when we say Juana the Mad, she was crazy? Okay, so the crazies win, which is fun to say, the crazies win, but Juana was labeled crazy for political purposes. She was in a position when her mom, Queen Isabella, died to be Queen of Castile, and then when Ferdinand died, her dad, she would be Queen of Aragon. And Ferdinand didn't like that. So as soon as Isabella died, as soon as Juana's mom died, her dad said, the girl's crazy, and locked her up in a castle, out remote. And so he was King of Castile. Now Philip, Juana's husband, didn't like this. He shows up, causes some trouble, gets Ferdinand gone from Castile, but then Juana's husband, Philip, calls her crazy and keeps her locked in that same castle, and her husband becomes King of Castile. Now, after a couple of years, her husband, Philip, dies, and what do you think happens? Juana's son labels his mother crazy and keeps Juana in that same castle where Philip kept her and Ferdinand kept her. The men in her life kept Juana locked up for 46 years. Now, Juana was capable of being queen. Back when women weren't that much educated, Isabella, Juana's mother, made sure Juana got the best education, and Juana had a great role model for how to be a queen. Her mom was Isabella, but she was betrayed by the men in her life. Now, the final insult to Juana is where she's buried and who she's buried with. She's buried with her father who betrayed her and her husband who betrayed her. So I kind of think maybe it isn't Juana the mad as in crazy. Maybe right now it's Juana the mad as in angry at who she's stuck with in her burial. On the way out, let me just take a final shot at the husband who betrayed her, Philip the Handsome. Now, it turns out, from what I've read, that's a bad translation. It was really more like Philip the Fair because he was fair complected. And let's take a look to see if our boy Philip here is handsome. Here he is. No, sorry, dude, definitely a mistranslation. Not handsome.
Granada is known for its community of Moroccans, Moroccan shops, and Moroccan food and restaurants. Here we are enjoying Moroccan mint tea.
See if I remember this. It's Moroccan pour. Not as good as they do it, but I tried. It smells delicious.
Along with spinach appetizer and tangines. When the Muslims were expelled from Spain in the 1500s, many went to Morocco. So these Moroccans who have come to Granada may be returning to the homes of their great-great-great-great-grandparents. Thank you for visiting Majestic Granada with us. Please be sure to like and subscribe.